Yeah, we back. Now, welcome back to another episode of Economic Warfare. Now, today we're going to be talking about Mali. We're going to be talking about the big homie, Assimi Goïta. Now, if you've been following my channel, then you already know I've been keeping track. I've been documenting the legal battles and the economic battles taking place between the governments of Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger versus the foreign multinational corporations. As we already know, the biggest story of the past year was how the French multi-billion-dollar multinational Orano, the uranium company, was destroyed by Niger. They lost their operating license, and within less than 6 months, the company went bankrupt and had to get a bailout from the French government. And then, of course, sometime in the past few weeks, I spoke about how Burkina Faso has begun the process of refining their own gold in-house, right? Instead of exporting the gold to the Western economies, they began refining their own gold in-house, building their own refineries and doing everything on site. And then, of course, in Mali, as you already know, it's been a complete shakedown, right? The foreign multinationals are currently under pressure. The CEOs of these companies have been arrested. And recently, we got some excellent news to report. Take a look up on the screen. Mali is set to get $1.2 billion from miners in the first quarter of this year following an overhaul of the mining sector. Now, I want to talk about Assimi Goïta. Shout out to the big homie once again. Now, $1.2 billion in the treasury, in the state treasury for the first quarter of the year, straight cash. Now, when I examined the actions taken by Assimi Goïta, His Excellency, General of the Army, I came up with a name for it, right? I would call this gunpoint diplomacy. That's why I named the video how Mali was able to secure $1.2 billion using gunpoint diplomacy. Now, gunpoint diplomacy is an offshoot of what we already know as gunboat diplomacy. Take a look up on the screen. Gunboat diplomacy is foreign policy that is supported by the use or threat of military force. And basically what gunboat diplomacy is when a nation would send their navy, right, and basically saying, listen, sign this deal or we're going to blow everything up. Basically threatening somebody to bring them to the negotiation table using the threat of force. Now, in the case of Mali, under the leadership of Assimi Goïta, I coined the term gunpoint diplomacy, right? Because instead of sending a navy, what Mali did was bringing the foreign multinational corporations to the negotiation table by sanctioning the company, by arresting the executives, by blocking the shipments of the exports, by issuing arrest warrants, by destroying the stock prices, basically forcing these companies into submission using physical force. And if you remember a few months back, I did a video on it. Take a look up on the screen. Australian gold company confirms the arrest of the CEO and 2 executives in Mali. That was back in November. The CEO of Resolute Mining, multinational corporation in the sector of gold mining. The CEO, Terence Holohan, was arrested and he was detained for several days. Take a look up on the screen. Shortly after he was arrested, Australian gold miner Resolute's shares sink after Mali detains the CEO, right? So take a look up on the screen. As you can see, this is the stock performance over the past few months. As you can see, the stock price collapsed. In fact, the stock price collapsed at such a rapid pace that the company had to suspend trading on the stock. They had to stop all trading on the stock because all the shareholders were selling off the stock because it was going down in the goddamn dumps. So they had to suspend trading on the stock while the CEO was currently in prison. Take a look up on the screen. Resolute Mining shares fell by 32%, their worst trading day in 16 years, after top executives at the gold mining company were detained as part of a crackdown on foreign firms in Mali. Now, after spending several days in an African prison, take a look up on the screen. Mali wins $160 million in gold mining dispute after arresting a British businessman. Right, so Terence Holohan, he's a British citizen, and it was funny because the British embassy was lobbying on his behalf for his release, right? Even though he's a CEO of an Australian company, he's actually a British citizen. Now, let's continue. Mining company whose CEO was detained agrees to pay Mali $160 million. 3 executives of the Australian company Resolute Mining were arrested this month. Mali, a major African gold producer, has been trying to increase its share of mining profits. Resolute Mining says it will pay Mali's military government $160 million to settle a tax dispute after the company's British boss and 2 other staff were unexpectedly detained 10 days ago. Reports say that Terry Holohan and his colleagues were arrested while traveling to the capital city of Bamako for what they were expecting to be routine negotiations. Now, keep in mind, all the foreign multinationals currently operating in Mali have all been audited. Right, they've all been brought back to the negotiation table, and the only ones who have been arrested were the ones that I guess tried to play hardball, didn't want to, get with the program. So we had to, sit them down for a few days, for a few weeks to get their mind right, and they came back and cut that check. You know what I'm saying? Cut the check. Hashtag cut the check. You feel me? Now, let's get to the story of the day. Right, Mali is set for a huge $1.2 billion payday from mining businesses. Considering the overhaul of the mining industry, Mali is expected to collect $1.2 billion in the first quarter of 2025. Mali, Africa's second biggest gold producer, according to the World Gold Council, carried out an audit of operations and rolled out a new mining code, triggering talks over new agreements and outstanding tax bills. So yeah, man, it's time to come back to the table. It's time to renegotiate the numbers. It's time to pay what you owe, pay your taxes. And I'm also hearing that all those tax exemptions, all those tax exempt benefits that were signed under previous regimes, I'm hearing that, they've been scrapped. They've been abolished, right? So no more tax exempt status. No more running off not paying your taxes. No more running off trying to steal money. No, none of that. Pay your taxes. Pay what you owe. Come back. Renegotiate the numbers. It's a new day. Yesterday's price is not today's price. Now, let's continue. Since Mali became more strict with mining businesses within their borders, the country's mining industry has undergone an extensive restructuring. The military government decided to go in this direction after it discovered a deficit of 300 billion CFA francs to 600 billion CFA francs in state revenue. Now, I would say a rough estimate to convert to USDs, I would say 300 billion CFA francs to 600 billion CFA francs would be in the ballpark of like around 400 million to 900 million, roundabout. So basically, when they ran the numbers, when they looked at the books, they were like, listen, man, these white boys running off with the bread, that they running off with the money, bro, So that's why they had to call them down to the country. Like, yo, bro, come down to the country and let's talk about this. You running off with like millions and millions of dollars, bro. And then, of course, we had to arrest them boys. You feel me? Of course, we had to arrest them boys. Now let's continue. As a result, a new mining code has been adopted, mandating mining companies to pay millions of dollars in back taxes and dividends. Yeah, man, you're running off with the bread, bro. You're running off with all the bread, man. Come on, bro. Let's continue. The West African country's finance minister, Olusegun Sanu, announced in a statement to its parliament that Mali got 500 billion CFA francs in December following agreements with the mining corporations. Now, Olusegun Sanu, that's this brother right here, the minister of finance, the minister of the economy. So he was the one that was running the numbers, doing the calculations, and he told Assimi Goïta, bro, they're running off with the bread, bro. They're running off with the bread. Now, $500 billion in CFA francs, I would say a rough estimate would be, I would say around the $800 million USD ballpark. So they said so far they have collected $800 million, right? Shaking down these multinational corporations. So it's not only the $160 million they got from that mining company that they arrested the CEO. They've been also shaking down the other companies as well. And the reason why it hasn't been in the headlines is because the other companies, it seems that they've capitulated to their demands. They've accepted their demands, right? The only reason they arrested the other guys is because I guess they were trying to play hardball, right? Trying to act like they wasn't going to pay the money. So they were like, all right, bet. You want to talk crazy? Put your hands behind your back, bro. I'm not here to debate with you. I'm not here to go back and forth with you. This is what it is. You pay the money or you going to sit down until you decide to pay the money. The choice is yours. You either pay the money now or you're simply going to remain in our custody until you decide to pay the money. The choice is yours. You can pay the money now and go about your way, or you can sit down for several days, several weeks, maybe some years until you decide to pay the money. But you are going to pay this money. That's why I call it gunpoint diplomacy. Now, let's continue. The push by Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger's military governments to renegotiate terms with mining companies and gain a bigger share of revenues has coincided with a surge in gold and uranium prices. It has also followed a series of coups started with Mali in 2020. Now, like I mentioned before in previous videos, this shakedown is actually perfect timing because the price of gold skyrocketing as of recently, the price of uranium on the comeback. So right now is the perfect timing, man. Right now is the perfect timing. Strike while the iron's hot. Let's continue. In Niger, where the military government tore up a defense agreement with France shortly after coming to power last year, authorities have taken control of the French nuclear fuel company Orano's uranium mine. And of course, if you remember, I did a video on that last month. Take a look up on the screen. French nuclear firm Orano says Niger has taken control of the uranium mines. So as of right now, as I'm currently recording this video, France no longer has any access to the uranium mines in Niger, one of the largest uranium deposits on planet Earth. And not only that, France's debt is currently surpassing their GDP, which means that the country is on the route to bankruptcy if they can't fix this problem. Now let's continue. Endeavor Mining sold 2 of its gold mines to the Burkina Faso government for $60 million, having flagged an initial agreement of $300 million. Now, time out. So I did a video on that as well, Burkina Faso taking back the gold mine. So Burkina Faso cut a check for $60 million to this British company to take back control of the gold mine. But The gold mine was originally worth 300 million, but somehow they ended up negotiating it down to 60 million, right? So, goddamn, man. Them boys wanted 300 million. Ibrahim Traore was like, listen, take the 60 million and go about your way. Take the $60 million and go about your business, man. And guess what? They took the bread. They took the 60 million, cut their losses, got the fuck out the country. Now, let's continue. Burkina Faso's military leader Ibrahim Traore said in July that he would withdraw permits from miners headquartered in countries that did not supply military equipment. Now, shout out to my boy, man. Shout out to my boy. He said one condition in order for foreign multinationals to do business inside the country is your government, the government of your home country, must be willing to sell us military technology. Must be willing to sell us, tanks and armored vehicles and drones and weapons and, ammunition, things like that. That's the condition. If you refuse to sell us weapons, you cannot have access to the critical minerals. And if you remember, I did a video several months back where the foreign minister of Mali, he had actually spoke about how a lot of these Western nations who claim to be our so-called allies, they refuse to sell us any military technology to go do battle against the terrorists. But meanwhile, they send in, billions and billions and billions of dollars to Ukraine, right? But they won't even sell you a goddamn rusty pistol from the 19th century. But they're gonna send all the submarines and the drones to Ukraine. Billions of dollars of technology to Ukraine. But they won't even sell you a rusty musket from the 1800s. It's crazy, bro. Let's continue. Barrick Gold Corporation indicated that it would cease its mining operations in Mali if the authorities continue to interfere with its activities and exports. Now, Barrick Gold, the second largest gold mining company on planet Earth, right? The second largest gold mining company in the world, is currently also involved in a dispute against the military government in Mali, right? Assimi Goïta shaking down them pockets, right? Yeah, shaking them boys down. Gunpoint diplomacy. You're going to pay that bread. You're going to pay that bread. Now, take a look up on the screen. Barrick Gold faces export ban and warns of a shutdown. So currently, the company is under sanction. The company is currently under sanction, meaning that there is no gold shipments leaving the country until we get this sorted out. Until you come sit down with us at the negotiation table and we talk as men and we talk big business, ain't no gold leaving the country, bro. I'm sorry to tell you. Let's continue. Mali is seeking 500 million in outstanding taxes and dividends from Barrick. So, like I said, they've already secured at least $1.2 billion from the other foreign multinationals operating in the country, already renegotiated the contracts and everything. $1.2 billion already secured in the treasury for the first quarter of the year. But Barrick Gold, I guess the CEO of Barrick Gold, he don't want to pay the money, right? He don't want to pay what he owed. Anyways, let's continue. In response, Mali noted that this company owes over $512 million in unpaid profits and taxes. Barrick, however, denied this. In November, an agreement between the parties collapsed, leading to the second detention of 4 Barrick executives. So listen, like I said, you don't want to pay your money, you don't want to pay what you owe, put your hands behind your back. We don't gotta go back and forth, bro. We don't gotta debate. We don't gotta waste our time talking. Put your hands behind your back, and whenever you feel like paying, I'll be ready to take the money. Take a look up on the screen. Back in November, 4 Barrick Gold employees arrested in Mali. Then after that, Mali issues an arrest warrant for the Barrick Gold CEO, Mark Bristow. Mali's military-controlled government has issued an arrest warrant for money laundering against Barrick Gold's chief executive officer, Mark Bristow, amid an escalating dispute over mine revenues in the West African nation. Now, Mark Bristow, a South African national who's the CEO of a Canadian mining company, I guess, no offense to my South African brothers, but, I guess he got too comfortable. I guess he thought this was like South Africa, where you could just do whatever the fuck you want. No. You're going to pay what you owe with interest on top of that, or put your hands behind your back. So we issued an arrest warrant for this South African goofy. And of course, he's ducking the smoke. Mark Bristow is ducking the smoke. At least I give respect to the CEO of Resolute Mining who got arrested, because at least he showed up to the country, right? When we called him to come to the country, he at least came to the country to negotiate and have a conversation. Mark Bristow, he ducking the smoke. He hiding right now, right? Mark Bristow, he knows he has an arrest warrant on his name, but he doesn't want to show up to the country and clear his name. He is hiding. He's ducking the smoke. He's probably somewhere in Johannesburg ducking the smoke. Probably somewhere in Toronto ducking the smoke. Listen, arrest warrant for Mark Bristow. We waiting for you. We want to have a conversation. Now let's continue. Barrick Gold said on Monday it would suspend operations in Mali if the country does not lift restrictions on gold shipments within the coming week, as the mining group faces what sources told Reuters amounted to a confiscation order. Now, it seems that the military government in Mali under Assimi Goïta is employing the same strategy used by Niger in their dispute with Orano, because Orano made similar threats, right? Saying, oh, we're going to suspend our operations if you don't, unblock the shipments, because Niger had also blocked the shipments of uranium also. So Orano tried to play hardball. But then eventually, as you already know, they lost that dispute and lost access altogether, right? So they tried to play stupid, play hardball, and ended up losing access to the uranium mines altogether. So it seems that Barrick Gold is also trying to maintain a good face, right? Maintain a good poker face, trying to maintain their composure. But like I said, Barrick Gold, the CEO, Mark Bristow, you have an arrest warrant on your name. So I would suggest you come down to Mali, come down to the capital city of Bamako and clear your name, right? Address these allegations like a man. But anyways, I saw a funny headline from Forbes.com, right? It said this: why is Barrick stock down when gold prices are up? Listen, man, we shaking them boys down, man. We shaking down the foreign multinational corporations, bro. We fucking up the stock price, man. We messing up the stock price, man. We messing up their market share, bro. We messing up their profits and revenues for the year. Let's continue. Army General Assimi Goïta, Malian head of state, announced that the renegotiation of contracts has made it possible to recover a shortfall of nearly 1 trillion CFA francs. These funds have notably made it possible to accelerate the repayment of the domestic debt, with 345 billion CFA francs wiped out instead of the 200 billion initially promised to economic operators. In addition, this renegotiation has made it possible to erase an additional 60 billion CFA francs of external debt. In the short term, analysts said they expected the military governments to continue squeezing the companies already in the region. Now, 1 trillion CFA francs, I believe that's about 1.5 billion. So far they've recovered 1.5 billion in revenue from these foreign multinational corporations, and they still shaking them down, right? Barrick Gold still owes us another 500 million. So that'll take it up to $2 billion if we can get that money from Barrick Gold, right? We need to shake that money down from Barrick Gold. Mark Bristow, cut the check, come down to the country, address your arrest warrant, clear your name, clear your allegations, so we don't got to take you down to the station, bro. Now, obviously, like I said, I'm sure they're going to use a lot of this revenue generated to invest in military technology, but also they talked about how they're using this money to clear off their debt, both their domestic debts and their external debts. Now, in terms of the domestic debt, it seems that they had promised to pay off the creditors at least 200 billion CFA francs, which I think is like around, 300 million USDs, right? But instead, they ended up paying over 500 million USDs, right? So they ended up clearing more of the debt than they originally had promised the creditors. So from what I can tell, that actually puts them in good standing in terms of their domestic debts. They're currently ahead of schedule. And they also were able to invest in paying off 60 billion CFA francs in external debts. So now, instead of worrying about paying off debts and worrying about paying off creditors, they have now freed up revenue to now invest in other areas, right? Invest in development, education, military technology, etc., etc., instead of money being put away to pay off debts that were most likely incurred from the previous regimes. So yeah, man, shout out to the big homie Assimi Goïta. Shout out to my boys, man. Shout out to my boys. Hey, Mark Bristow, CEO Mark Bristow. Like I said, man, just be a man and just come down to Bamako, come down to Mali and address the allegations, right? This is not South Africa. This ain't South Africa. There is no rainbow nation over here. Ain't no rainbow nation in West Africa. You feel me? You owe us money, so pay what you owe. Point blank, period. You can't just do whatever you want as if it's Johannesburg. Bring your ass down to Bamako and pay the damn money. Anyways, man, this is whenever Never that's Salim back in the Billy. Yes, indeed. Cash app in the description. Support the channel, man. Support the album. Peace.
No. Feel like I'm 75. Know that your team be full of them traders. You know that can never be mine. I'm grabbing a thought when I drive. I'm back in my zone and we on. She said that she ready to come be my wife, yeah, hoping I don't do her wrong. I gave her my word and it's wrong. I'm whipping the best like a lamb. I'm eating no chicken and lamb. Accustomed to call me the man. I never be up on the gram. I'm keeping that way undercover. She want me to tell her I love her. I told her I'm breaking the rules. I told her we making the news. Back in my city, they loving me. Standing alone, I'm 100 deep. Enemy plotting and still in reach. They try to make sure that we underneath. Trying to make sure that we never make it. Coming for power, come get acquainted. Coming for everything that I wanted. Feeling like Drake, but I really wrote it. Feeling like Kendrick, I'm checking names. Gotta roll up while I go insane. Got so much stress, I been gained weight. Stuffing these racks in this Louis case. One thing for certain, I'm about to check. Keep it 100 and nothing less. Stick with the family since day one. Had to stay down till my day come. Had to stay down, but I'm never patient. Hop on the mic and I motivate them. Hop on the mic and I drop a classic. Haters can't see me, they copping glasses. Back in the studio making magic. Got a new tape and it's in production. Back on my business, I got a budget. Staying low key when I'm out in public. Feel like I'm 75. None of your team be full of them traders, you know that can never be mine. I'm grabbing a thought when I drive. I'm back in my zone and we on. She said that she ready to come be my wifey and hoping I don't do her wrong. I gave her my word and it's bond. I'm whipping the best like a lamb. I mean no chicken and lamb. Accustomed to call me the man. I never be up on the gram. I'm keeping that way undercover. She want me to tell her I love her. I told her I'm breaking the rules. I told her we making the news.